Your circle will change as you accomplish your goals and level up. Everybody can't go.
And we live.
Yes.
Welcome to another Everybody Can't Go Convo. Happy Wednesday to all of you. I am excited as always. Y'all know I can't come to y'all a Wednesday without being excited. So this week we are putting some more focus on Mental Health Awareness Month. And I have brought you guys an artist, a singer, an author, and also a mental health advocate, a person who there have been times where I'm like, look, I don't know what to do. So I got to hit you up and I got to ask you a few questions. So this week I bring to you guys none other coming from, you know what? I ain't going to get the borough wrong. I just know it's in New York. Coming to you this week, we have Rich Vysion. Welcome, Rich. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much just for having me. I really appreciate you.
Of course. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. You guys know I'm about to start with my questions hot and heavy. So tell us about what you have going on right now. Tell us about yourself, your personal self, yourself as an artist, and let us know what you have going on right now.
Yes, so first off, I have the big thing, which is a big deal, which is definitely the premise really for this entire podcast is really like to promote my new book called From Victim to Victor, Transforming Trauma into Triumph, which is like I'm very excited about this book because it's been 3 years in the making, believe it or not, for this poetry book. So I'm ecstatic about being able to actually have a book in my hands to say I did this and I did it. So I'm very proud of myself for being able to accomplish that big one of those big things on my to-do list, my goal list. And I'm promoting that now, and I've been going to gig, really just going hard for my message, which is like you're enough, that you're not alone in your struggles, and that's pretty much like my whole brand. The reason why mental health is so important for me in my journey is because there's been times in my life where um, I was told I wasn't good enough, and I started to internalize a lot of the things that people were saying about me and my career path, and I started to take um a road that wasn't so appealing. So I started just um messing with vices and stuff like that I'm not proud of, in order to escape the pain of, of like that not feeling worthy. And I started to spiral, and I just realized with the times when I started spiraling, I'm so grateful that I had anchors behind me, people in um my community, people who are family to me, online and offline, just pouring into me and always reminding me year after year as I continue to find who I was, my identity, and really grounded me to say, hey, like you're worthy of being here and you have something to contribute. So every time like I put out something, whether it's a song or anything, I remind people like, you're worthy of being here because I once felt like I wasn't good enough, and that's the message that I really um cherish, in my personal development journey as I continued on throughout the years, is to continue to just honor that sentiment.
That's what's up. Now, you guys heard a couple of those buzzwords in there. He mentioned that personal development. So, that thing that we talk about around here sometimes, taking accountability, taking a look at relationships, taking a look at ourselves first, and then moving forward and growing from there. So, you kind of started to take us into
Mhm.
one of the next things I wanted to talk about, which is like what was the catalyst that led you to become an artist? Was there like a specific event where you were just like, you know what? I'm about to pick up this pen and do my thing. Like, how did that artist journey come about for you? And like, how did it start?
For me, it pretty much started in middle school, high school when I started to get into like journaling. It was like a prompt that was given. Um, and as far as like being able to express like, okay, how my day was going or how did it go, and it just like felt like, I don't know, cathartic for me just to be able to be expressive in that fashion. Even as simple as like, oh, my day went great, or oh, my day wasn't as good as I'd hoped. And for some reason that allowed me to just channel a lot of things that were, I felt like in a sense were stuck in me at the time. And I realized how healing that was, to the point where I was like, oh, maybe I can just experiment with where this will take me. I started dabbling in um writing like little raps and poetry, and everything just kind of just like, I don't know, it just like exploded into like song. It was just like kind of like a form of expression, just like me like saying, okay, maybe I can do something with these words and put them into something, and it just started to like in a sense form itself.
Okay, okay. That's what's up. I'm glad that you were able to find like journaling as an outlet so early on. Shameless plug, go
Yes.
ahead and cop that Write the Vision journal. That like journaling, it it serves so many different directions. I'm thinking like, which direction do I want to go with that thought? Because it does serve like as an outlet when you need to brain dump, get all of that stuff out. And sometimes like having like that daily, just get it all out without holding it in and exploding on the people around you, or when you're
Hmm.
having feelings, and even working through processing what it is that you're feeling. Like a lot of times we'll just go to, I'm angry, and it's like, but why, about what
Hmm.
specifically? And sometimes
Right.
like that, the journaling and writing it out, it helps to slow down your mind enough, or for you to dig deep
Mhm.
enough as you're writing, so that you're
Yes.
able to like really get a release without having that explosive response, and doing what sometimes we call bleeding on people that didn't cut you. So I
Well, I
love
love
that. I
that.
love that.
Yeah, that's super
So
profound. I never heard that way.
yeah, yeah. And I think we got a slight delay on here, but we gonna go ahead and rock. So the next thing that I wanted to talk with you about was
Hmm.
like the inspiration behind your new book. What, as you
Yes.
moved from journaling into the book itself, like where did you pull the inspo from? Like where did it start? And you just told us it
Yes.
was a 3-year journey. Tell me like all about this.
Yeah. Yes. And this was written. The book was written during the pandemic. And it was during the time where Um, I only could speak for myself. I will speak for myself. Like I was at my lowest. I was dealing with depression, being isolated from being able to actually like, see friends. And it was just like kind of like, or even to like go to the gym. It was a really hard moment where it was like I was facing my demons in front of me, of the things that I was concealing for so long and haven't dealt with. I didn't deal with the fact that I still had felt like, yeah, I could do this music thing, but then it's like I wasn't getting the validation from a couple people, and it felt like I was in a hamster wheel, like always chasing this like approval and validation from people versus, chasing that validation within my own self. And it really took a lot of inner work to be able to change that narrative. Um, and at the time when I was writing the book, I was realizing that like this story is so healing. Just like me going through that, like that self reflection and the inner work was so healing to be able to just like come out of it and say, wait a minute, this is not only serving me, it's serving someone else that I don't know. And I was realizing that when I was going through it, and seeing it as like, wow, like there's so much things that I've gone through, and putting the pieces together. Like for example, like I was going through mental abuse during the time I was writing the poetry book, and with a mentor of mine that I had revered for 4 years. I was taking a music class online, and she did mentor me, and it was one incident where gaslighting was involved um in my direction, and I didn't know what that was until one of my friends from the same class that we were in together, that she facilitated at the time, told me like she's been doing the same thing to me. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, I couldn't believe someone who I've revered for so long had the capability of doing or being, you know what I mean, a narcissist. I'm just gonna call it as it is, a narcissist. And she exchanged resources with me during the time of the book. And I realized that, wow, this is such an important part of the book, because when I was going through the mental abuse, like I was stuck. I felt stuck. Let me rephrase it. I felt stuck. Like I didn't want to be here. Like I contemplated like swallowing lead and jumping out the window. It was like I was going through so much mentally, and I didn't know how to handle my emotions because I never dealt with this before. And I was so glad that like my friend was like showed me the video um on YouTube. It's a video called um it's a gaslighting film that is basically takes people on the journey of like what it is in real life. And it's like that really changed my life. It saved my life. And during this time, I was like, wow, like I didn't know like this was a part of her gaslighting me and this part of my life. And I started to like put like the pieces together. And then I realized it's like, wow, like I really need to do something about this. But my friend told me like I should just address her and tell her how I feel. And I ended up like just like about the journaling, I ended up typing up a letter of like how I felt. I was like, I'm not standing for this no more. Like this is ridiculous. I'm a human being. I should be respected like one. And I started typing like a letter that I was in a sense presented to her like the week after, because I had a meeting with her, and I said, to her how I felt. I was like, it's not okay to do this. And she got defensive. She was like, you're pointing the blame at me, you were at fault. And I'm like, and which is true in a sense, because I did initiate the phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning, when I was confiding her to hold space for me when I was depressed. And she didn't take too keen of that. She was like, oh, I should have sent an email better. And I'm like, I was crushed, because I'm like, depressed, crying, don't know what to do. And it's like, it's like you wanted someone to be there for you, and then they just like, take your soul behind somewhere else. Like, I don't got time for you. So that's how I felt. I felt belittled, and I felt like she was pretty much prioritizing like how much um money, in a sense, it will cost me to do like a 10 song album versus the stuff that I was dealing with behind the scenes that I needed to be confiding with her in. So throughout this whole thing, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. I'm like, I'm really, I feel like I'm in the Matrix because it was just like way too much going on. And at the same time, I'm like, it was kind of felt like time was just like slowing down a bit. And then I was feeling like, okay, how do I really cope with like feeling like I can't really express how I want to, want to feel in front of my mentor, even though like I feel like she didn't like. I said she didn't want to understand like my point of view because she was kind of like, oh, you know what I mean. You're not supposed to do that. That's a boundary. You're not supposed to be doing that. Like, I give you my number. And then fast forward to like after the fact that conversation was over that night. We spoke on another occasion, and you know, we let time pass by, and we were just like, okay, we both were at fault. I was at fault with initiating the call, and she was at fault for, you know what I mean, saying certain things and belittling me. And we both forgave each other, but after that whole ordeal, we never really spoke after that, and I ended up leaving the program because I just couldn't deal with someone who would have the capacity to do things to other people in that same way that she did to me. So a lot of the premises of the book is about like going through mental abuse, of how I felt about it, and also my journey of like taking it back to like when people were just like, oh, you trash. So I ended up putting a lot of the stuff in the book about like what was said and how I was able to use motivational videos as a catalyst for healing through the time when I felt like I wasn't good enough to be here. So a lot of the book is basically um inspired by my whole entire journey of self worth and mental health, wellness, all combined in one.
That was a lot. Like, that was a lot to take in. I know we've,
Yeah,
spoken before, obviously, but finding out and talking out some of the, digging a bit deeper into the situation and what happens with everything that, and then I want all of you guys to think about like, what were you doing during COVID? I can guarantee you guys
yeah,
I wasn't having the best time either. And that was just a very heavy time for like everyone. And one of the things that I would always say during COVID, like I'm like, okay, well, you can't do it because why not? What else do you have to do? We're not going outside. And
right,
at the time,
right.
I was in Detroit, so Michigan was hit fairly hard, as well as New York. I know you guys were hit really hard out there, and then I think it was like a few weeks later or something, like Michigan caught up with how dire the situation got in New York. When everything completely ceased, it was you literally know you were not going outside. Like the streets were completely empty at one point. And there were plenty of times where I'd thought to myself, like, there were times where I did wish that I was at my apartment alone. There were times that I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad that I don't have to be here alone. And then just like facing that I was where I was with who I was with at the time because of the choices that I had made up to that point. And that not having, I can say that a big thing for me was having tools available to me online, and
Mm,
resources and people to call, people to reach out to, and different bits of technology to help me to what I now consider not waste that time. And I was able to make positive use of that time because I had so many resources made available to me, and or I had sought out so many resources. And
mm,
I find that there have
mm,
been so many stories of people that either did not yet have the resources or had not yet thought about researching to find those resources, to find groups, to find other ways, new ways to connect, when that human element was like literally that social and human element was, it was there one day, the next day it was completely gone. And then also all of the mental effects that started to have on everyone as a collective, but also all of these individual households, all of these individual people, with the different ways that we were all dealing with what was going on, worldwide. Some days it was like, oh yes, it's zombie apocalypse,
Mm-hmm.
haha. Other days it was
Yeah.
like, I am laying in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of my floor watching it rain for the fourth day, and I have already watched every single season of Jeopardy, so what else can I do? So I can only imagine like what that would be like to reach out to someone, especially someone that you confided in, someone who was in a leadership role, and not being able to be received in a time of what it sounds like is, I won't say desperate need, but dire need. There's
Yeah.
in the healthcare space, we'll sometimes talk about the difference between
Mm.
urgency and an emergency. And that definitely sounded like that was, it was a bit
Yeah.
emergent at that point. It wasn't just like, I'm calling you with
Yeah.
an inconvenience right now.
Uh-huh.
um and
Right.
that's one of the things that I talk about on the podcast and in the book, and different things as well, is making sure that we're surrounded with those people, that the relationships are not only mutual, but people that when you do have that emergency, or when you do have something that is urgent for you, that people or those that you spend the most time with, they are that safe space or that helping hand. Someone who it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but if there's something that is really going on, and it's like, I'm sorry to bother you at this
Mm.
time during this, like, do you have capacity right now for me, because I'm really having a hard time. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's other folks don't always think that way when we're reaching out to them, and sometimes we aren't received in a way that is
Mm.
is helpful to us,
Yeah.
when we do actually need that hand to hold. So yeah, that was quite a bit that you had to go through, and I'm so glad that you were able to grow through that
Mm.
that painful situation. And I noticed that when you were speaking earlier, you talked about how writing the book itself, like while you were writing it, you were like, this isn't just for me. It's almost like you were
Yes.
able to see the purpose in your pain in the midst of your pain, and that's
Right.
just really powerful
Yes.
that you were willing to share.
Yeah, so absolutely. No, I appreciate that because, even during the time of the pandemic, I was I did a lot of inner work, so I started to take motivational videos a lot more seriously, and then I realized the motivational videos that came to that was that came in my atmosphere, so to speak, was um videos that like really exacerbated the word victim, and then it just felt like I was in it wasn't like an accident that those videos came up, because like I really felt like I fit the mode at the time of like, oh, victim, like, oh, I don't know what to do because I just don't know how to process my emotions, and that was a real valid sentiment as well. And then while I was in that moment of where I was like saying, wait a minute, is this something that can be used for someone else, was when I actually got over um the revenge fantasies that I had with my mentor at the time, and being able to just say, I'm above this. And it's like, I can't be, or I won't be the person to say, I'm a positive, recording artist, and I'm here having revenge fantasies about people, wanted to like get even with people just because, of mental abuse and XYZ, and it didn't feel good for me, and I knew it wouldn't. Um, yeah, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. Within myself. So I started to really heal from that mental abuse. And it took quite a lot of time to be able to say, I really forgive. Like, I even wrote a song about it in my EP. I forgive you for me, because I realized forgiving was such a healing part of the whole journey, even through the pandemic, of just saying, hey, like, I don't want to feel like I'm a victim, because I know God is definitely didn't, what I mean, create a victim. You know what I mean? He created me to be victorious, to conquer, you know what I mean? And, to thrive, right? So for me, all of those things really helped me realize that, like, hey, once I heal my wounds, it will be able to get other people to be accepting the fact that, hey, this happened, but this doesn't have to be my reality.
That's really good. That's really good. So, were there any other things that like inspired the book, or was it just part of that healing journey for you? Were there any other sources of inspiration as you were writing?
Yes. One person who also inspired the book was an author who I had the privilege of speaking with on occasion or two via my mentor's program. And he is also, like me, an author, which is cool because his book, like, I was inspired because his book had, like, you looking at someone through a screen, you would think like, oh, this person has it all together, like, he's making moves, and he got this clothing line, he got this, and automation, like, he got this going on, right? And then you read a book by someone, and you're just like, jaw hit the floor, like, you went through this, you feel like giving up on yourself, like, you were depressed as too, like, what, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes, like, for me, sometimes it's hard to see the human in people, because it's so easy to see the exterior. You don't know what, I don't even take note of, like, what's going on beneath the surface. And by reading his poetry book, it reminded me that everyone, you know what I mean, and I don't want to be like broad, but honestly, everyone is going through something. You know what I mean? And they may not always be willing to be expressive about that, which is okay. But everyone's going through something, and it's like, you can't really, in a sense, judge a book by its cover. So his story of, like, him being depressed, and how he navigated, really inspired me to be like, wait a minute, like, he did a poetry book. Like, I'm like, I have poems and spoken word stuff that I'm able to, like, put into book form and inspire other people. Like, he's using to, inspire people, who have been through the same things, and it's getting through, and healing and helping people, get through, those tough challenges and those tough trying times, and it makes people, like, it makes people relate to, like, the whole sentiment of, like, not being alone in your struggles, in our struggles.
Yeah, that's real. And everybody does go through something at one time or another. If you ain't going through it right now, you didn't either been through it or something is about to come. Like life is not just a straight linear line. Like there are ebbs
Right.
and flows in life, whether it's real jagged for you or, even if it's a smooth wave of ups and downs, like there are still going to be times where you're gonna experience some things that it just do not feel good. You're gonna experience some things that it's just like, I could have done without that. Some stuff you just not gonna like it. There's gonna be some stuff you gonna be hot. You gonna be some boiling hot water, and then there's other things that it's going to hurt so badly that you literally are just shut down and numb. And
Mm-hmm.
with the range of negative emotions that you can feel, everyone, you know, everybody not going through the same thing at the same time, but just know that somebody somewhere is always going through something, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody has been through something, is going through something, or they will be going through something.
That's
So
right.
me just like knowing that and thinking about that, it definitely helps me to operate in, I would say, with extending more grace to people, and then also with, it helps me with communication in being able to let people know, this is what's going on with me. This is, there is something happening with me. I am not at liberty to discuss it right now, but this is what I'd like to have from
Mm-hmm.
you if you'll allow it. If not, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I don't have capacity to balance this with you, and then balance the other things that are weighing me down on the
Mm-hmm.
other side. So yes,
Yeah.
that was really good. So as we're moving forward, um as a mental health advocate, what are some of the negative coping mechanisms that you've used in the past? And then what were some of the positive coping mechanisms that you replaced those with, as you were on your like growth journey and moving from where you were to how you are now?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I One big thing for me was during the pandemic. I started like ruminating on like I started going way back in the past when I had a tendency of an example would be like I would go through like different messages that I would get from people that were negative, and I would hyper fixate on all those negative comments or when people were trolling, and I was ruminating a lot on that to the point where I started spiraling because I started only thinking about what negative things were people were saying about me versus the positive things, and I allowed the negative to outweigh more of the positive things that people were saying about my music. And also, one thing I noticed also was um, I'm not really proud, but I started to drink to alleviate some of that mental strain as well, to cope with it. And I started to heads up, you know um do the be involved with self-harm as well and experiment with that, which again, that's my past, and it's a part of my story, and it wasn't something I was proud of, and that was a way I was able to, in a sense, cope at the time. And one of the things I did use, as a catalyst in the sense of like helping me um, develop a more positive coping mechanism is actually journaling, like we spoke about earlier, how important that was for me, being able to get all these emotions out, like, oh, I'm angry, da, 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 da. And even like the communication, like, was such a positive mechanism for me too, because like I had two people who I say like I'll say like a good like 3 to 4 people who really held space for me, my mentor included. So even though like we had a falling out, she held space for me too when I was going through it. So like having those people to actually have those hard conversations without judging was meant the world to me, because like again, when I went through, those struggles, feeling like I wasn't good enough to be here, feeling like the world would be better off without me, and having people just change that narrative for me really helped me to see myself differently and see myself the way they see me, and the value that they see in me. So that was something that was important for me. Um, and also, just being able to like express it through my music, the anger, writing songs of healing, and performing out, and things like that, really helped me navigate those negative spaces. One thing also was the daily affirmations. When I didn't do them, I was like off. Like it just really angered me to like stay positive and stay rooted and grounded, and just in positivity, just to be grounded in myself, you know what I mean, and in my being, and allowed me to see myself in a more positive light versus like the negative chatter of like doing all these things of like, oh, like me thinking like, oh, it's okay to like just hit myself for no reason because I didn't think like I was a good enough rapper, you know what I mean. That wasn't a good way for me to handle things. And then versus me saying, wait a minute, that's not being kind to yourself. How do we reverse it and do something with this energy that you have? Whether it's like write a song, and even like the gym, like even though like we were on lockdown during the pandemic, I started like I'm like, oh, I ordered a kettlebell, I ordered a mat, and I really went hard on my fitness. I was hard on fitness before, but I just took it more seriously as far as like, okay, I'm in the house, it's like the least I can do is like work on my fitness and get out of my head, you know what I mean. And this is quote called I don't know who says it, but like when you're in your head you're dead. So that's what how I felt when I was going through it. Was like, oh, if I'm in my head, I'm literally spiritually dying, and it's like I have
Mm-hmm.
to do something to move my body. So this my fitness really helped with just being able to just allow me to be in a different space, um, headspace versus me being in the negative, um, victim, mindset of like I'm hopeless, like I don't know what to do, I'm self sabotaging, and now versus like more enlightened version of myself in that regard.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I'm glad that you were able to like make that transition and like grow through that pain so that you were able to come out on the other side like a stronger person, able to come out as that victor, instead of,
Yes.
staying in that mindset and that space of being victimized and like internalizing that and then owning it. And it's like, I'm just going to stay here. This is what I am. And I love that you
Yes. Yes.
spoke about those affirmations because, whether we're saying positive affirmations to ourselves or whether we're internalizing the negative comments of other people, it goes back to what are you telling yourself you are? And you talked about at
Mm-hmm.
one point, we're just going back through all of these negative things that other people were saying and like started to internalize that. That's, you guys, that is a form of you are allowing someone else to tell you who you are. And this is why the affirmations are
Yes.
so important. When you're saying those affirmations to yourself, you are putting it out there, not just putting it out there, you're also putting it in here and putting it in here,
Mm.
that you are declaring who you are, what you are, whose you are, and any of those things. So, I was on that same tip when I first learned
Yeah.
about affirmations. I'm like, no, that sounds stupid. And I was like, you know what? If it's if it's lame, then why can't I try it? What is it gonna hurt if it Even if it's lame. And after I started to practice doing affirmations on a regular basis, I started to find and I started to notice how many negative things that other people plant in our heads. And we think that we're the ones like, oh, yeah, no, I thought that about myself. And it's like, no, who told you that? Because you didn't
Right.
tell you that. Like, that's something that somebody else said, and you either heard it so many times or you replayed it for yourself so many times that you started to say that thing. And so sometimes those affirmations, they like really help with stopping those negative thoughts. And then also you're able to kind of like notice, like, you know, when self be like, excuse me, Jessi, excuse me, Rich, what you doing? And it's like, you know
Yes.
what? I am having a thought that is not so good about myself. We're not doing that, are we? And Soph is like, no, we are not, because this morning we did our affirmations. We said that I am, which, you know, if we're gonna go to Exodus 3:13 through 14, you just said I am. So basically you said, God, you done said his name. So what is it that you're putting after when you say I am? And that has kind of just always stuck with me, that we need to be kind to ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves. And when we do feel like we're being down on ourselves or negative on ourselves, the one phrase that it ever since I heard the sermon, shout out to Pastor TJ Titus, ever since I heard the sermon, I could not stop thought stopping myself without asking a question. Who told you that though? And every time you stop and ask yourself that question, if it is some foolishness, if it is something negative, and you stop and think to yourself, but who said that? Who told you that? It's never you. It's always somebody else that plants that whatever that negative thought is in your head. So that's definitely something to look out for. And I would tell you guys, you know, jot that down. You know, I'll tell you, if you got to rewind, run it back, take that as a note to yourself, if nothing else. So as we're wrapping up here, my last question for you today was, what would be like your top 5 recommendations for any viewers if they find themselves like in conflict around toxic people, having you know, just feeling down on themselves or anything like that? Like, what were your top 5 faves for growing through the painful time in your life and coming out on the other side with this amazing book, with your music, with all of these other things that you've been able to express yourself in a positive manner, help other people? What would be your like top 5 recommendations for people?
Well, that's good. One is to one that's good that you mentioned, as far as like, one would be to use discernment in regards to like again, like, is this person like, even if, you know, this question, like, who's talking really, because that is really what helped me get through those dark times. Was like, I started to really like, and even my mentor was telling me the same thing, was like, she kept saying, you know, there's nothing wrong with me, even when I thought there was something wrong with me. And then she reminded me, like, you know, who was saying these things. You know, I'm like, oh, you know, she always taught me the question, like, just like you were saying, just about like, who is saying these things? It's like, you know, and if it's not me, then, you know, is it really valid? You know what I mean? And I started to really implement that in my life, of like questioning who was actually speaking. And then it helped me really navigate those spaces of like realizing, like, okay, I have the power to create a different story. You know what I mean? And actually like write it, you know, write a different story, and like own that, you know, the new narrative. One another thing will be, I know I'll go back to the affirmations, because those affirmations were like really, really key. The reason why I see affirmations, because I learned even up to like I would say when I was doing coaching, life coaching with Tanisha Saz. She's a life coach. She's amazing. She taught me how to do affirmations, but also like reaffirm the affirmations, which is I never even knew about until she taught me how to do it. And that was really important because like yes, I'm like, okay, I write I'm enough, but then it's like I reaffirm that like I'm like you are enough. So it's like a double, like it's like you kind of like in a sense like feeding yourself like a double dose of motivation, in a sense, in one setting. So that was like really helpful for me to just continue to implement that on a daily basis, as well. Um, three, big on therapy, big on therapy, because um just in general, I can't do it alone. No man, woman is an island, and it's like the people who are successful have people around them who are pushing them, coaching them, mentoring them. You know what I mean? To get to the next level, and you know, even in the personal development space, if we want to talk like this, like transparent, it's like um for me, I made great strides and put money into investing in either a therapist or a life coach to help me navigate these um inner demons that I was going through, like and it helped me change my perspective on life, how I saw myself, and how I was able to like you said, just grow through that experience, through that trauma and pain, and use it as a catalyst for healing. um for I would say um change your environment, why I say that. I noticed that when I'm in bed and I'm like in a sense of like it's like I don't want to do anything. You know what I mean? Like in life, like it's easy to get comfortable in that space. But I realized like no, change my environment. Oh, I'm going to the gym, or I what another thing I would do? I would be like, okay, I would, even if I didn't change my environment in the sense of like, oh, go out the house. I mean, I would say in a sense go out the house, because like being inside and being secluded doesn't help. It only help intensify those moments of like the unworthiness feeling and the suicidal ideation that I had during the time, and it just enhanced those or intensified it more because we were all on lockdown and alone. So I wouldn't recommend this being isolated at home. I would suggest like going out, whether it's like out to eat, either you know what I mean, or like go to like just have like a self care time, and that's so important because um again, it's like when you change your environment, you change your state of mind. Going out for a walk, you know what I mean, like even for 5 minutes, that helps. Like one thing I did, I was doing is especially because it was the pandemic, since I wasn't able to actually physically go out, but besides working back, I had ordered these posters um that had like positive quotes on them, and I would look at them like every single day in the morning, sometimes one, two, three times a day, just to continue to remind myself like, okay, I have a purpose, I'm here for a reason, and I am enough. So just looking at that every morning before I get up, after I get up, this reminded me of like, okay, there's something here, you know what I mean, that's uplifting me when I don't feel uplifted in my own physiology. Um, was one thing. I even took a step. I ordered like motivational teas. I would wear them, and I would just surround myself with positive things to continue to this enhance that feeling of like positive energy. You know what I mean? And Even videos, the positive videos I was watching too, helped. I would recommend that too, like, because the more positive, and the thing about it is during the pandemic, I did it so much that I didn't have the time to think negative because I was feeding myself all this positive energy. And that helps, because you feel yourself toxic, toxic comes out. You feel yourself positive, positive comes out. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And if you're in an environment where there's a lot of negative chatter, people cursing, you're gonna end up cursing even if you never cursed before. It's just how it is, by nature. So like being able to just like change the station, so to speak, and be able to say, no, I have the power to pick up a book and read. Another one's reading. I kept myself in the books to feed myself, want to learn about the stuff that I was going through at the time and how I was able to cope with it. But they were like self-care books to help me navigate my depression. So all those things like in combustion, like combined, really served as like a catalyst for me to really be rooted in empathy and really be rooted in my healing journey as well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So if you're looking for show notes, look, the last 10 minutes of the episode, last 15 minutes of the episode, all of those bullet points there for tools that you can use, techniques that you can use, things, take the pieces that you need, the other parts, leave it for somebody else. And so I would encourage all of you, even if these are things that you've heard of before, or if they're things that you've tried but you forgot, you need to dust off those things. You need to go back to them. Or even if you were like I was, and it's like, that ain't gonna work. Try it anyway, because what's the worst that could happen? So that we will call it a wrap for today. I thank you so much, Rich, for coming on. Go ahead and hold up that book for us one more time. As always, I will be sure that you guys can get that link in the show notes so that we can get your copy of that Victim to Victor, that book that Rich has released just recently. And you can also find his music on, I believe, YouTube and Apple Podcasts, right? I'm sorry, and Apple Music. I got mine on
Yes,
Apple
Apple Music.
Music. So,
Yes, and Spotify. Yes, all over. I'm like streaming all over. All over. You can find my
okay.
music all
Okay,
over.
cool. And I will make sure that
Spotify,
you get,
all streaming platforms.
okay, cool. So I will make sure that you guys have at least one of the links so that you're able to find Rich's music. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being on with us tonight, Rich. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you too.